Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's May 8th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and I didn't mean to have the screen jumping all around, but I was trying to back out so we could show you. It's a lot of volatility here, so a lot of volume as well compared to what we've been getting. In the end, this is a big range day. The range is fairly large, 28, maybe 69 to 28.98. So I mean, it's 20, almost 30 points, so it's a big range. But it's still a range day. You can see the overnight highs, the overnight lows, and everything traded in between, and you can kind of see the midpoint across here. It was somewhat resistance, then it became somewhat support. Um, Really, the way you have to trade this is just look for the smaller trends within there, a little more micro. There's some shorter term trends, there's some shorter term ranges and so forth, and that's really how you have to play this. There's just not an easier way to do it. These are not easy days to trade. You need to really have a good understanding of price action, or these days can be difficult to trade. I mean, they're still difficult to trade, even if you're good at it, because it's constantly switching gears on you. But you can see here, pretty much there was an upward bias most of the day because we were really going from the lows to the highs, and then once we got up there, we just kind of stayed in the upper half of the range and continued to be a range. But it's a fairly big one, so you can still get some trends in there. Um, it's hard to mark every trade on this. Um, your chart may look slightly different, and that's just the nature of tick charts. People that are new that come in, they just go, they go berserk because, well, I shouldn't say they go berserk, but they get upset because they can't make their chart look like mine or exactly like mine, and that's just the way tick charts are. It's impossible. They're not static and all the same like time-based charts, but that's okay. It does not matter, so don't let that shake you up. I know that you would like to be able to say, hey, I want my chart to be exactly like Mac's chart, but it's just not possible. You can get it close, and you might get it to look very similar to mine for the most part, but um, you're not going to make yours look exactly like mine. One thing I do that I do, if you use um, if you use NinjaTrader, load 21 days of data. That's what I load, and that'll get you close. If you load 21 days of data, I use CQG for my data provider for all the charts you see here. Um, so if you use those things, you ought to be able to make yours look relatively close, but they'll never be exact. So just be aware of that. Don't let it bother you. Some trades will look better on my chart, some will look better on yours, but at the end of the day, it all works out in the wash, and we'll all get plenty of trades. You only need 2 or 3 good trades a day. That's it. That's all it takes to make a good living at this. And I mean, you look across here, there's a dozen or more trades there. There's plenty of trades. You had to be patient a few times, but there's trades all over here, and you could probably, just like I talked about yesterday, you probably could argue for a few more in here. So if there's a trade that I didn't mark and that you liked and that it fit the rules, then it was probably okay. If I don't talk about it and it's just bugging you to death, feel free to send me an email and point it out, and I'll tell you what I think about it. But for the most part, there's probably some in here. Just like yesterday, I've marked a bunch of them green that I really didn't mark early on, but they kind of fit the rules, and if you're following the price action, following the rules, and it fits, and you want to take it, I mean, that's what's so good about price action is some of it's subjective. So based on your read of the market. But that's why we're successful with this, because if you just tried to lock it in the rules and you did say we're only going to take a trade if it does this, 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 and this, you would never have any trades probably. So there is some. I mean, you do have to use your brain and your reading skills, and sometimes it's just a personal call based on your comfort level with that trade. And if you're not comfortable with it and didn't take it, that's great. Just because I marked it doesn't mean you had to take it, and vice versa. Just because I didn't mark it, if you're comfortable with it and you read it right and you got it right, then that's probably okay. So again, if you just got to know, send me an email and send me a picture of it. But always, I do say that anytime you send me a email asking about a trade, you have to send me a picture and you have to point out specifically where you're entering, because it's just I do not have time to try to sit there and spend 30 minutes on a chart trying to figure out where you're talking about, where you entered. If I can open that picture and look and know exactly where you entered and you've pointed it out and you've asked a simple question on it, I'm happy to answer it. But a lot of people will just send me, and they'll say, hey, at 8:46, and I don't know if they're talking about 8:46 in the video, 8:46 at the time. If it is 8:46 at the time, is it my time, your time? What is your time? I mean, it's really confusing. It seems like it ought to be real simple, but it's not. So if you don't send me a picture and say, hey, I entered right here, then I'll probably just close it up and send it back to you, or maybe just delete it, because I just don't have time, unfortunately. I wish I could had time to answer every question and dig into it and figure it out. But if you make it real simple for me, I will answer it for you. I promise you. You can ask anybody that knows me. I always answer emails. I always try to help people where I can, and I'll continue to do that. But you got to help me by making it easy for me. So, and hopefully that makes sense. So, anyway, didn't mean to get off on that tangent. Let's talk about the trades. When I came in, we had been working down, and we'd kind of found the bottom and started. It looked like we were maybe going to reverse here. 7 o'clock came right in here, and there's just too much overlap right in there. This was right before 7 o'clock, and I probably would have been afraid maybe to take that long because there's a failed second entry short. The only problem is there's still a lot of sideways. You're below the EMA still. It's been all downhill. So you're better off just kind of sit tight. And then we finally come down. Notice what happens. We work back up. We've already had a break in a new low, so we're looking for a possible reversal. But I don't have the line on here, but there's some strong support right across there. And you can see that support working across there. And we really kind of made a little double bottom. Then we dropped down and failed and turned back up, and so there's a second entry long right there, a little ways away from the EMA, a little failed break below some support when we're looking for maybe a possible reversal. So I kind of like going long right there, and that thing rockets off, takes off, and then we just start kind of chopping around there again. You're better off just stay out of that. You'd really kind of be leaning towards a long here, and you just don't really get a long setup. You just start really kind of chopping sideways here, and I just don't see anything I like. But again, you kind of make, this has kind of been the MO lately. As you can see that resistance across there, and we kind of come up and make a high and then try to go higher and make a lower high and get a nice bearish bar. There's still some congestion right there, but the reason is because they're trying to get it through this resistance area and they can't. And you can see how many times we tried to get through there, and then but you also, I drew this trend line off these lows and drug it up, and we turned down once, and then now you get a confirmation. So I like that about it as well. So not only do you get a little double test right here of this previous price level, you get a double test of that trend line. Notice you draw it on that first swing and you test it. So I mean, you test it twice right there, and that's a nice bearish bar. So I like going short there, and I'd look for a measured move down, and you can see it almost looks like a repeat pattern. It drops down real quick, and then it kind of chops down, and it drops down real quick, and then kind of chops down. So if you measure, I'd measure this first, and you can see we got a perfect measured move, and if it continued to go lower, I would measure all of it like so, and you can see we actually even go a tick or two below that before we reverse. So there's a nice two-legged correction with a little drop down, and then it reverses. And then actually once we started going higher here, I would measure this move. I'd measure just this one too, just in case. But I'd measure that one. And you can see we didn't quite get there. But I would also just measure this one. Like so. And then from right here. And you can see that's basically a perfect measured move. You got two legs up, and then it tried to correct, and it ends up going higher, but that would have given you a nice target and a place to get out. And you notice we went to it to the tick before, and then we were reversed. So, but anyway, I like that short, and then I was really looking for this trend line to possibly reverse things right here. You just better off stay out of this. It's just no way to, you just get whipsawed. If you tried to go long or short, you just kind of get whipsawed. So just let this play out right here. You don't know really what's going on there. You can see it bouncing off that trend line, so it's still fitting here. But we push up and push outside it, pull back, and just keep going. So it turns out this two-tiered channel kind of takes precedence. And notice too that you got this one working, this two-tiered one working up, and you get a break here, and you actually finally get a new high here, and it tries to, you actually get the new high right here, and then it looks like it corrects from maybe 8:45 to 10:20, so a little over an hour, which is about what you would expect. And then it takes off again. And so that's, I mean, it's kind of playing out by the expectations there. You get a break, a new high, and then you get a correction. And that's another thing. A lot of times people think when you're looking for correction that you're going to start trending back down or the opposite direction, whatever the trend was. But that's not necessarily true. A correction can just be sideways like this. This is a correction. We didn't go higher, we didn't go lower, we just went sideways. And so that can be a correction. So anyway, we were working up here, and we finally get a break of this shorter term trend. And so you're looking for a possible long, but you don't really get a good long. There's a second entry here, not a very good signal bar. That's very bearish. And so you can't take that, but then it fails. And so now you got a failed second entry long. Well, you got a trap. That's probably worth taking a short right there. Quick, easy move, but then it kind of looks like, hey, we're just in a trading range here. And so you either got to try to get short up here or get long down here. And generally you want to wait on a lower high. You might have considered this one. Notice that it does go both up and down. But you would have to wait for it to close really to enter. And then you don't have much room back to the trend line. You probably could still say you got enough down here, and it would have worked regardless, but I just think you're better off with that very neutral bar now with 3 bars stacking up. Just sit tight. And so it comes back up to the top, but again, you don't get a very good signal bar. Then it comes down here. This is a decent signal bar that bounces back down here at the lows. But it's still not a great one, and it's just the first entry. So again, I just think I just don't see anything in there that's worth trading, in my opinion. This one does have that little failed break lower. So this is the only one in here that I might consider, because sometimes you catch those major lows. Notice you just get a two-legged correction. You get a leg up and a little 2 swings, and then you get another measured leg up. Just to make it easier for some of you to see. Leg 1, leg 2, and it's a perfect measured move. So, and there's a little 2-leg correction in the middle of that. And then you actually get a failed breakout here. That's another one, but generally you want to wait on the lower high, which comes here, but then you don't have much room right here. So I'm scared of that one, but you might take that one because it's giving you a chance to get short at the very high of a trading range. But the bias was somewhat up on this thing because we're still kind of making higher highs and higher lows, so I'm not crazy about shorts either. There's definitely a failed second entry long right here, but that's right back into the lows. You don't want to take that. And then we drop on down, and you try to go lower again, and basically you get a failed break lower, and you get a little trap right here. And you're a little bit of ways away from the EMA, and it's a failed break out of this range too. So that might be one of those major lows that you might catch. And if you take this, guess what? It does. It turns out to be one of those major lows. You're able to get a runner here, and you can, and look where this goes, all the way up to the highs. And so I'm telling you, watch for these trades. This was one here, but this wasn't as good a setup. You really didn't have a lot of information that this was a range just yet. You're got a lot of choppiness there, but notice how we're making lower highs and you're making lower lows and that kind of thing. And so that's the reason I'm not as crazy about that. You can still see some support across there, but it's not as clear as it was by the time we get way out here. So I'm just not as crazy about that one. But we run up here and we start going sideways again. And so once again, just stay out of this right here. There's no reason to get chopped up in that. You got to play it like a range if you're going to play it at all. A lot of times you're better off. And guess what? You get that little failed break lower once again. And nice bullish bar. If you can get in this trade, notice it. There's no overlap there. It just closes on its high, opens on this low, and takes off. So you may not have got in this trade. It got real volatile right in here. So if you were able to get into it, if you didn't get in down here, hopefully you could get in here. They're kind of similar trades. It's that little failed break lower that might be an important low. And look, if you didn't get in here, if you could get in here, look what you got. You get to ride this all the way up. And again, though, it's probably tough to get in right there. I don't know if your chart might be slightly different, and you might have had a little better opportunity than I did, but you'd be hard pressed to get in that trade on because it just took off. So then you run up and it comes back and you get a first entry and then you get a second entry and it does confirm its trend line, but look at all that stem there and it's an inside bar. It's very bearish, so I'm not crazy about it. I think you need to wait on the second entry, and that doesn't come till here. And now you just came off the high of this range. And every time we shoot up like this, we just start going sideways. So you really need a better entry than that. I don't have it drawn, but if you draw your trend line here, you can kind of see that, you probably don't even really have a break and a new low there. You just kind of reverse. Although you do have this trend line working up, but you have an overshoot too, and you know what that means. Sometimes that means that you're not going to have a retest. You're not going to go higher. You're just going to reverse. So you got to be real careful with that one, especially since we've already had a break here and two legs up. So if you'd taken that, it works, and if it looked a little better on your chart, maybe, but I just don't like it on mine. Then we run up to the high and we pull back first entry, and then you get a second entry here, and now you get a nice little signal bar. But notice how you got a little support across there too, and you kind of get that little drop down. That one's worth considering. I went back and forth. It's real close to being green. Same reasons I didn't like this one, although you get a little better setup here. You at least own your trend. If you look at your little trend down right there, you get a close outside and a new low. There's a clear two swings there where there's not here. You get a nice signal bar where there's no stem here. So, I'll have people tell me what's the difference between those two? They look just alike, but they're not. And hopefully that makes sense to you, what I just explained to you. And so that one works. But then we continue down, and you just keep working down, and you finally come back and you get a test of this trend line, or confirmation of this trend line, I should say, not a test. But notice that you drew it off those first two. You finally come back right here, and there's a new high. The main reason I like this one, not just because it's off that trend line and a nice bearish bar, but you get a new high right here. It's higher than that one. So first entry, second entry. So you got two legs down and they fail. It turns down right off the trend line, right under the EMA. You kind of tested that twice from the underside. It's holding. This trend line's holding. I like going short there. And then you get another little failed second entry long and another chance to go short right off that same trend line. Notice how it closed below the EMA. I like going short. I don't think I would wait on this bar here and go short way down here. It's just too big. You're getting close to this little lows over here now too, so you need to be real careful with that one. But I mean, it would have worked, but that's just an awfully big bar, having had all that support across there. So, and then you make a low and you come back, and that bar is too neutral on the first entry. You got a little overshoot of the channel here, and so you'd expect prices to try to move back to here. It actually turns back down, but I don't see anything you want to enter there. I don't think you can enter out of here. You got to understand why we probably got support right there, or I mean congestion, because there's support. We're way away from, or I shouldn't say we're way away, but being away from the EMA and finding strong support right there means you're probably going to go in the other direction. But I don't see any setup there. There's a lower high right here, which normally I'd probably say, hey, that might be the way to go. But you don't have much room back to here, and you see it tried to turn down there and didn't. And there could have been some of you that said, hey, this looks like a second entry short here, which you could call this a double bottom, and then a first entry and a second entry. But look at that trend line working up. You know, that's, if you took that and got burned, you know, you already had the overshoot here. You've already moved down quite a bit. There's probably, I didn't measure the legs. I would probably measure like right here, and then from here down. So you're looking for a measured move right in here, and we've already moved that amount. So I just don't think you can do anything with that. And you don't want to go short here. You finally get a lower high that you might consider a short, and now it's right back into all this. And you see what happens. It fails. It breaks out and fails, and then look at that bullish bar. That's, you know, it's another one of those, hey, you may have just hit a major low. We've already got an overshoot, a break, a new low, and a failed break lower. There's a little room back. There's not a lot of room back to the EMA, and you can see we struggled to get through there. The only reason I didn't make that blue was because we were back close to this EMA, and it's you know, you're trying to pick bottoms here, so you got to be careful with it. However, I can't stress to you how often those little failed break lowers on the bottom are very important and can be very important lows and highs for the day. You hear me talk about that a lot, so, and you see the results from it, so they speak for themselves. But anyway, I think you're better off to skip that one, and then it tries to go lower again after it pushes through the EMA, gives you a failed second entry short, and it actually went lower and turns, it goes out the other side. I like going long right there, and you notice it took a little bit to get going, but it does. And look at it take off again. You may not have got a runner on that one, unfortunately. You probably, well, you may not have even down here, I'm not sure. You probably wouldn't have even got a runner down here on this one. So then it runs up. You get your first break, and pulls back first entry, pull back second entry, and this almost looks like a repeat of this move over here, and so that's why I like that one. And you actually get a little better signal bar here too. It's good for a scalp, nothing more, and then you're chopping along. But guess what? You just wait a few minutes and don't try to get in any hurry to get chopped up in all this stuff, and it drops down there and gives you that little failed break lower. And this one happens to be a second entry long too. Notice that high is higher than that one, so moving down first entry, you get a second leg down, and then a second entry long right there. And you could expect it to try to come back up to here at a minimum. There's a little bit of a trend line working down, but even with that, you still got plenty of room to get out. So once again, that's a major, or it could be an important low, and guess what? You get two legs up, and if you measure them, they're pretty doggone close, if not exact. You can see that right there. Two measured legs up, and then it sells, and then look at the sell-off after that. Boom. And this is all after 2 o'clock. So I didn't mark anything else after that. There was another second entry long here that you might consider because there's a little bit of support. This is kind of like this is actually the close from yesterday. And notice how important that area is. Look how we bounced off of that all afternoon. It was acting as support, and then it acts as resistance, support, resistance, support, support, and so those levels come back to play over and over and over. And you can see this is the regular session open. Notice how many times we played off that both sides. So those levels can be important. So keep up with them. But yeah, you might have entered right here. That's another one that I could have marked. But we were just coming off the highs, so there's a chance it's going to try to go to the lows here. But notice how we made a high and then first entry and then second entry, and that's a nice little kind of a bullish reversal type bar. It's a little bit congestive there, but you would expect this to drop on down, and it didn't. So we may push on up for another leg, and that's exactly what happened. Just so happens there's one leg, a little two-legged correction, and another leg, but that's all within that one leg. So I showed you how I measured it a minute ago, and once you made this leg, this generally will get you the closest. The most recent leg will get you the closer to. I'm gonna measure this one exactly. So there's leg one, and then there would be leg two, and you still want a tick or two higher. So you really, same thing you got by measuring this leg. It went a tick or two higher. But that's what I saw for today. Was that an easy trading day? No. You really need to be able to read price action. But if you didn't do anything but wait for these sideways areas and wait for that little failed break lower, if you just traded that, you would have done pretty well. So, and there is still, all day long, there's a slight upward bias, except for maybe right here after we came off the top. There's a little bit of a downward bias, but it didn't last long, and then we were back to the upward bias once again. So really for this day, this whole thing, we're going higher. And so it has a high, it has kind of a, even though it's flat, sideways kind of day, it's still, it's a relatively large range, and it has a upward bias to it. So you always keep that context in the back of your head that, hey, we got a little bit of an upward bias. So when you get these failed break lowers, they can be very important. And once we came off this top, you might say, hey, I'm going to try to catch a failed break higher like here, because you may catch an important high. Just like right here, we never really got much up here. The resistance, we couldn't never get back up that high again to maybe get a failed break higher. You know, we kind of set that there's a double top up here, but we never could test that again. The market just wasn't strong enough. And we kind of closed not far from, we closed down a little bit from yesterday in the end. So, but that's what I saw today. So that's going to wrap up our day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, and believe it or not, tomorrow's Thursday, I guess, and we'll be wrapping up our week. Wow, the weeks just keep rolling by. Next thing you know, we'll be halfway through May, and it seems like we just started May yesterday. But anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. I hope you've had a good week so far. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.